Good morning. I am Brian Downs, and this is a Republic, if you can keep it. I'm coming to you from Orlando, Florida, on the 1st of September, 2025, about 20 minutes after 7 in the morning. Let's talk about the Centers for Disease Control. How do we, as a species, succeed? How does this pack of monkeys get ahead in anything? The way we do it is we change our environment. We humans change and control our environment to a greater degree than any other species does. We put roofs over our heads, we plant crops, we drive away predators, we dig ditches to drain off rainwater so that we don't drown in the flood. We change and control our environment, not only our external environment, but our interior environment. We control the insides of our bodies. That's what medicine is for. And one of the ways we do this, one of the primary ways we control the insides of our bodies, our interior environments, is through vaccines. This is settled science. Somewhere in the 18th century, 250 years ago, it was first discovered that vaccines are one of the most powerful weapons we have against the scourge of communicable diseases. Viruses, of course, especially. Please go ahead and look at the history of viruses: smallpox, polio. Terrible killers. I believe that smallpox has, in the course of human history, killed more human beings than any other cause. Did I read that somewhere? Anyway, a hell of a lot of people. Vaccines battle viruses, which is why here in the modern first world, infectious viruses are a relatively small problem, except of course for the COVID-19 pandemic. That was a bad time. But what was the COVID-19 pandemic? Well, a new virus appeared and it spread rapidly and millions around the world died. Tens of thousands of Americans died. But how did we combat it? With science, with medicine, by bringing vaccines to market very, very quickly, and by promoting their use. This is settled science. And although I do not wish to minimize the suffering and the chaos that was a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, it was, compared to other pandemics in human history, not that bad. As far as percentage of the population killed, as far as villages depopulated, as far as influence on art. Boy, look into the history of the Black Plague if you want to cause yourself to sit up at night. Look into how many paintings of death were produced, death walking in the morning. So, viruses are settled science. Viruses are how this species succeeds. This brings us, of course, to RFK Jr. A crank, an imbecile, an idiot, a man who is railed against vaccines. Have I been saying vaccines? Right. A man who's railed against vaccines and their indisputable efficacy for a decade, and has, in the upside down world of Trump Part 2, been made the Secretary of Health and Human Services, which puts him in charge of a lot of things, including, oh gee whiz, the Center for Disease Control. The Center for Disease Control recently got a new director, Dr. Susan Manaras, and then RFK Jr. told the Center for Disease Control that the new policy regarding COVID-19 vaccines would be that we would be handing out a lot fewer of them. Now remember, we're less than, 5 years out from the beginning of that pandemic, and less time than that from the end of it. COVID-19 still exists, you can still get it. But hey, the CDC says, let's give out fewer vaccines because RFK Jr. is an idiot. So, RFK Jr. says to the director of the CDC, yeah, we're going to severely limit how many vaccines we give out and who's allowed to get it. The director of the CDC says, no, before I sign off on that, I wish to consult with all the doctors I've got on the payroll here, the big brains and the experts who have done nothing their whole lives but study these terrible little bugs. And we'll see what our consensus is. To which RFK Jr., twat that he is, posts on social media that Dr. Susan Menares, CDC director, is no longer the director of the CDC. Dr. Menares responds with a public statement saying, "I have not resigned my post, nor have I been fired." A post on social media is not the same as firing me. I'm certainly not going to resign. Well, Menares was shortly forced out. With her went several of her top scientists and doctors, resigning in protest, saying we will not work in this clown show anymore, because RFK Jr., who is not a doctor, who has never had 1 minute of formal medical training, who is widely regarded by doctors as a brain damage case, says that we should severely restrict how we hand out vaccines. The lives of millions are at stake. Again, in the course of human history, the greatest killers have been infectious disease. We in the modern world are fortunate to live in a time when we have the tools to throttle and restrain this enemy. Many people through most of human history watched their children die of fevers they didn't understand. That problem is much smaller today because of people like Dr. Susan Menares, who understand how all this works. Unfortunately, she has been subordinated to an imbecile, RFK Jr., who was nominated by an imbecile, President Donald Trump, who was then confirmed by Trump's toadies in the Senate as the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Remember, this is the same RFK Jr. who recently put out a comprehensive report about medicine and health in America that had clearly been produced by ChatGPT. I have a video on that if you want to look it up. This is totally unacceptable. This is the sort of farcical clown show that is absolutely on brand for the Trump administration. This is yet another reason why we must throw these bastards down. I don't think that Donald Trump can be impeached for what RFK Jr. did. Technically. He certainly can be impeached for any number of other things, his illegal executive orders. Check out my other videos on that. But this is a tragedy. That here in the United States of America, the greatest nation in the world, the most advanced, the great leader that is taking our species into the future, we are subjected to this opera of dysfunction. This must be corrected. Please, write to your representatives. Demand that RFK Jr. be removed from his post. Donate to causes, donate to candidates. Demand that Donald Trump be impeached. We can fix this, and we will.